Hi, I'm Sarah Swan, Vice President of Client Experience at Howe Rusling, and today's StreetSmarts episode is about demystifying college savings vehicles. Perhaps you're well aware at this point of how important it is to save for college for your children if you're able to, but you're feeling a bit daunted by the various options out there, beyond just putting money under your mattress or letting it build in a savings account. Then today's StreetSmarts episode is definitely for you. And by the way, any saving or investing is better than not saving or investing at all, and that should be made clear first and foremost. But I'm going to go over some pros and cons to hopefully take some of the mystery out of your decision making. Before I get to talking specifics, I just want to describe the factors that tend to differ between the options in order to give some background context. Account types can differ in how they're treated from a tax perspective, and this refers to how the funds are taxed as they grow, how they're taxed when they're eventually distributed from the account, and whether contributions made are tax deductible. Further, accounts can differ in how they're counted in a financial aid assessment of expected family contribution, otherwise known as EFC, meaning some are considered parental assets and some are considered the child's assets. And this is actually really important because parent and child-owned assets are treated very differently in an EFC calculation. Accounts can also differ in the rules surrounding how the funds may be used, as well as how they may be invested. And very importantly, they differ in their contribution limits. So let's get started with UGMA and UTMA custodial accounts. But really I'm going to focus on UTMA accounts because these have superseded UGMA accounts in most states. Standing for Uniform Transfers to Minors Act, these custodial accounts allow parents to put money away on behalf of a child. While the parent can be the custodian on the account, for the purposes of financial aid, these accounts are considered child assets. This is one downside to UTMA accounts, because for expected family contribution calculations for financial aid, child assets are counted at 20%. Whereas parental assets are only counted at roughly 5%. Another con worth mentioning is that earnings on growth in the account are taxed according to a less favorable kiddie tax rule. While a perk of UTMA accounts is that the funds do not have to be used for education expenses, which provides more flexibility, this is also seen as a drawback because the funds really can be spent at the child's discretion at age 18 or 21. So as the parent, if your goal was to help pay for your daughter to go to college, and instead she decides to buy a car with the funds, that is the control you relinquish with an UTMA account. Further, these accounts cannot be transferred from one child to another sibling. On the plus side, distributions from these accounts are exempt from income taxes, and because the accounts are self-managed, you can invest them however you'd like. In terms of contributions, there is a $15,000 limit per individual, or $30,000 if you're married, without incurring a gift tax. Switching gears a little bit, I'm going to talk about Coverdell Education Savings Accounts, which are established in a trust or custodial account on behalf of a child. Contributions are limited to $2,000 per year per child, regardless of the number of parents or grandparents who are contributing to that account. Although contributions are not tax deductible, earnings do accumulate tax-free, and when distributions are made for qualified education expenses, they're free of income taxes as well. Now, when I say qualified education expenses, Coverdell accounts actually aren't just limited to higher education tuition. They can be used for private elementary and secondary education and can be also used to cover room and board expenses. One important distinction about these education savings accounts are that they're subject to income limitations set by the IRS. Further, all funds must be used before the student reaches age 30, or anything remaining will be distributed, and the earnings are subject to income tax and a 10% penalty. To prevent this, though, the account owner is allowed to change the beneficiary to another family member. Now, of course, I've intentionally saved the best for last, the Section 529 plan. There are actually two types of 529 plans, and every state offers at least one of the two types. There are the slightly more restrictive prepaid tuition plans, and then the more appealing college savings plans. Prepaid tuition plans sell units of tuition at specified state schools and 270 private universities. Prepaid tuition plans are thought of as riskier because prepaid plans are often only of value if you are certain that your child will attend an in-state school or a specific private university. However, they are less risky in the sense that they sometimes offer a state-guaranteed return on investment. While most of the plans do allow funds to be used for out-of-state college tuition, there's often an accompanying penalty. College savings plans, on the other hand, do not restrict where the student goes to school, and they do not only apply to tuition and fees. They can also be used to cover things like books, supplies, and room and board. College savings plans, on the other hand, do not restrict where the student goes to school, and they do not only apply to tuition and fees. They can also be used to cover things like books, supplies, and room and board. Regardless of the type of 529 plan, there are several advantages. All earnings growth is tax deferred, distributions are exempt from income taxes, and assets are considered parental assets, not child assets, for the purposes of the financial aid calculation for expected family contribution. In other words, 529 plan assets are counted as the parents, so they are part of the approximately 5% rate of inclusion, not 20%, which is a big advantage. You can also switch the beneficiary of a 529 without any penalties if the new beneficiary is a relative of the original. The $15,000 contribution limit per individual, or $30,000 if married, stands for 529 plans too, but they have a special advantage of being able to be super funded. This means an individual can make a $75,000, or $150,000 if married, contribution in 1 year and stretch the contributions over 5 years without triggering the gift tax reporting limit. Furthermore, 529 plan contributions are actually deductible to the contributor on the state level up to $10,000, and there is no income limitation like there is with Custodial Accounts described earlier. Now, 529 plans do typically have limited investment options, usually limited to a series of mutual funds, unlike UTMA accounts, which can be invested however the owner chooses. As I said earlier, any saving or investing for the future is better than no saving or investing for the future, but hopefully this sheds some light on the advantages and disadvantages of the different savings vehicles. 529 plans, clearly a favorite, which have become increasingly popular and common in recent years for good reason, deserve a StreetSmarts of their own, so be on the lookout for that. For now, thank you for tuning into today's episode to compare some of the various college savings options out there, and we hope to see you next time.